All right, once again, I'm Julie Ferniers. I'm the Executive Director of the Greenwich Alliance for Education, and I appreciate all of you coming today to, as part of our AVID Success Career panel, to speak to 11th and 12th grade AVID students at Greenwich High School. So now I'm going to go off screen, and Megan Ostruska will be moderating the panel today. And once again, I'll see you all at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again for your time. And I'd love if we could just go and introduce ourselves one at a time. And the kids would love to know a little bit about your educational background and your career choice and what you kind of do with your time. So if anyone wants to start, go right ahead.
Sure, I'll jump in. So hi everyone, my name is Maddie. I'm Greenwich High School class of 2011. I currently work for a rideshare tech startup that actually helps to run public transit systems around the world. And for that company, I work on the operations side, and we can get into a little bit of what that means, but it basically means I help to actually run public transit systems that use rideshare tech all over the world, which is a really fun job that I enjoy a lot. I've had a lot of jobs since graduating college, though. I've worked on a lot of political campaigns, managing volunteer operations for them. I was a middle school math teacher for a couple of years. I worked in Hollywood for a sec as an assistant. I managed an on-the-ground operation for Google. So all kinds of things. I would say that the common thread among my experiences is that I help to run operations, which operations is just basically, it's a really broad field. It's just people who make things happen. And it's something where you can work in a bunch of different industries and operations if you're just somebody who wants to help make things happen. I didn't major in anything operations related. I majored in Asian and Middle Eastern studies, which was kind of random, but I did take some math and other more quantitative courses in college as well. I went to Dartmouth, and I think there was something in the bio about like, how did you pay for college? I was really fortunate in that my parents funded my education. When I was in college, I wanted to be a TV writer. And so after I graduated college, I moved to Los Angeles and started working in the mailroom at a talent agency, writing scripts and reading scripts and working as an assistant, and ended up deviating far from that path. I went and worked on political campaigns, and that led me to teaching, which led me to Google, which led me eventually to a rideshare tech startup where I help run public transit systems. So it's been a bit of a winding career path. I'm really excited to talk to you all about just operations careers more generally. If you're somebody who is a problem solver who likes to make things happen, you're somebody who would be really great at operations, and happy to talk to anybody about how to make a career in operations happen.
Okay, I can go next. My name is Lily Olsen. I am a photographer and all-around artist. I graduated DeJesus in 2010, a year early than I was supposed to. And I went on to go to Pratt Institute, which is an art school in Brooklyn, New York, where I studied fine art, got my BFA with a focus in sculpture. So after college, I got a job working for a furniture designer, welding and making his work, and then switched to photography, photographing his work, which kickstarted my photography career. And I've done fashion campaigns and portraits and a bunch of other things. I try to focus mainly on my art now. I have a business, and yeah, art has been a really flexible career choice for me in terms of what I want to do with my time, what I'd like to do artistically and creatively, and changing paths as I decide to. So I'd love to talk to anybody who has a more creative desire, not creative as a human being, but like an artistic interest, whether it be music or theater, etc.
Hi, I'm Dr. DeJesus. I'm a podiatrist, also known as a foot doctor. I am first generation born US. My parents immigrated from the Philippines in the 70s and immigrated to Florida. That's where I was born and raised. I went to University of Central Florida for undergrad. At first, I thought I wanted to be a chemist because I liked chemistry in high school. And then when I went to college, I was loving the lab part of chemistry, but decided that maybe the classroom wasn't for me for chemistry. So I changed to biology, changing into, the mindset of becoming a doctor. And then I went to Barry University in Miami for podiatric medical school. My parents did not pay for my college. I went through student loans. So, because they were immigrants, and I'm paying for my student loans now, which is a great thing. I wouldn't take back anything with my decision on that. It is a 4-year degree for podiatric medicine. I did graduate undergrad with a biology major in 4 years. I work at the hospital at Greenwich Hospital. I round on inpatients, which are patients that are in the hospital because of a severe foot infection. I perform surgeries on the foot, and I also deal with wounds at a wound care center at the hospital, and I run an office as an outpatient office for, heel pain, bunions, which are toe deformities, sprains, fractures, all sorts of sports medicine problems of the feet. I'd love to talk to anyone who wants to go into medicine. I can, help you out with the process. I got into feet because my uncle had a foot problem when I was in college. He fractured his foot and he was in a cast for several weeks. So he told me, check out my foot doctor because you want to go into medicine. So that's what stemmed my interest in feet. And I also had sprained my ankle playing basketball, and that kind of stemmed sports medicine aspect, and podiatry deals with sports medicine.
Hi, Carlos Fernandez, class of '85. After high school graduation, I went into the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps helped me pay for college. My parents as well, they immigrated from Cuba. So I was first generation here. The Marine Corps certainly helped me get through school. And because of the Marine Corps, I went to several different colleges before ultimately graduating from SUNY Purchase. My degree in school was in liberal studies. So I got to learn a little bit about everything, which was really beneficial to me because following high school, I did a little bit of a stint working for a cigar company. So that fits for a Cuban guy. But then I went right into the FBI after that. I spent 20-something years in the FBI doing all sorts of good things investigatively. Worked on everything from drug investigations to national security cases. Which was really great. The good thing about the FBI, you can have a 4-year degree in just about anything and everything because we work so many different types of violations that they like to have people from diverse backgrounds. So my background, given the fact that I spoke Spanish and had spent time in the Marine Corps, was an asset to them, and I was able to use that skill set, obviously in the FBI. Following the FBI, I became the head of security for a digital currency group, which is a crypto company. And I worked there to make sure that all of our people, in addition to all of our systems, are safe on a daily basis. So pending any questions, happy to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much. I think one of our questions has to do with being undecided in college. A lot of the people on the call today are 11th graders and 12th graders, and a lot of kids feel pressure to know what they're going to do with their career right now. So what advice would you give a kid who's getting ready to go off to college, who doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up?
So I can jump in just like from my own perspective as somebody who does something that is entirely unrelated to what I majored in. Obviously there are certain career paths where you do have to kind of major, like have a certain major in order to go and do it, right? Like, if you're going to go and be a doctor, you should probably, try to do coursework around that that's in college. Although I do know certain people who decided after college to be a doctor. It's expensive. You can do it though. You go back to school, you get something called a post-bac, you fulfill the pre-med requirements, and then you go to med school, right? Like there are people who go and choose to do that. But I think for the most part, like careers like doctor and certain things like that, you probably want to major in a certain thing in college. However, what I think people don't really appreciate is that there are so many careers out there that aren't necessarily careers you might be familiar with, where exactly what you major in might not matter as much. And I will give operations as an example. So I think that every field has some level of operations. Like a company like Google, for example, has engineers who actually go and code the software and make the hardware. And then there's a bunch of operations people who actually figure out, okay, how are we actually going to get all of this stuff to consumers where it can actually be used? How do we actually run this company on a day-to-day basis to make it so that we can actually make our products work in the world. So that's on the product side, that's product operations. There's, at a hospital, right? There are doctors and nurses who are actually giving care to folks. And then there are all the people actually running the hospital, figuring out, okay, how are we going to make sure we have enough medicine there? How are we going to make sure we have enough doctors and nurses on at all the different times? How are we going to keep the lights on? How are we going to reallocate resources to make sure that we're serving everybody? So that's healthcare operations, right? And every field has some level of that. And in terms of what you need to major in order to do that, the good part about operations is that you can actually start preparing yourself for a career in operations right now. If you have a job after school, or if you are running a club at school, right? You're preparing yourself to actually problem solve, manage situations, manage people, use resources effectively. I hire a ton of entry-level people currently in my current role. And what I look for when I'm hiring them is not what they majored in college. I'm looking for, have you proven an ability to solve problems, take ownership of situations, and use your resources effectively? And I find that you can demonstrate that through, an after-school job. You can demonstrate that by running a group at school, or, just demonstrating ownership of things. I would also just say that outside of general coursework in college, there are a lot of ways that you can acquire skills that can be valuable to employers. For example, learning code, learning SQL, learning project management. These are things that there are free courses on the internet that you can do. And so if you're concerned about gaining skills that are going to be valuable to employers, you don't necessarily have to major in computer science in order to have coding skills that might be valuable. These are things that you can do for free, kind of on the side. So that would be kind of my general advice on that front.
Oh, did you want to speak? Sorry. Okay. So I guess being an artist, it is a little bit more specific. I did decide to go to an art school. So I would suggest if you want to go into artistic fields, that liberal arts schools are a great place to start, given that you can have, a music opportunity or visual arts opportunities, and that it's a lot more well-rounded. But I did go into sculpture as my focus. And the thing about sculpture versus architecture or painting, which are more binding, was that there was a lot of flexibility in different types of mediums. So people were using performance art and sound and film and video. People were creating music to kind of incorporate into the sculpture field. And I ended up teaching myself photography while I was there and combining that with sculpture for my thesis, which now photography is my main source of income and main source of business. So I think that something that allows flexibility is just putting yourself in a place to meet a lot of different people who can show you different options, whatever they may be, and come up with career ideas. You might find something so niche that you would never even picture or know existed before, just by people putting you in a position to learn something new about yourself or about the possibilities in the future.
Okay, great. We have a couple questions that are coming in that are a little more specific to individuals, and then we have a couple general questions. One question kind of building off what was just said, you mentioned, I believe, Lily, just about making connections. I think we have a question maybe more for Carlos and for Dr. Jesus, DeJesus, about how do we build the connections if you're coming from a first generation family where you may not have those natural connections within your home or your community? Is there anything that you guys can kind of comment on from your experience?
So I believe in it's who you know, not what you know, right? So my uncle told me, check out my foot doctor, because now I wanted to go into medicine, and really I didn't know what type of medicine I wanted to go into. So I did go to my uncle's podiatrist, and I was just blown away by what I saw. I did not know there were so many pathologies of the foot, and I was just shocked, and I wanted to know more. So I do recommend that, if you are interested in podiatry or dermatology or becoming a dentist or anything, to reach out to your, local doctor there, or maybe reach out to your own dentist or podiatrist or whomever it may be, to maybe shadow for the day and see if you like that, if it interests you. And if not, maybe that's not really the route you want to go to, and maybe shadow a different specialist. Also, you can volunteer at hospitals. So if you volunteer at a hospital, you're exposed to many different specialties, even other things like physical therapists, nurses, lab techs, surgical assistants, things like that. There's always opportunity there, and it really, opens up your world to the hospital system. And also, if you are interested in going to a certain medical school, they have open houses that you can attend. They also have Zoom meetings you can, watch online. You can attend meetings online and actually speak to medical students and professors, and also administration, to see how to apply and what is needed to actually get into the school.
So networking was definitely a big aspect in my ability to be able to get into the FBI. I was able through, the Marine Corps, and then through other friends that I had outside of the Marine Corps, meet people in law enforcement and in college as well, get an understanding of what it meant to be in the FBI. And through those relationships and those connections, those helped me obviously get into the Bureau when I was ready to take that step.
The only thing that I would add on this point is
We'll
that
go to a question from Ms. Bittman's class in just a moment, but we do have a specific question from our room. Carlos, there's consensus in our room that your career is dope, and we'd like to know the craziest thing that you've seen in the FBI that you can share with us.
Dope, huh? I don't know if I'd use that word. The craziest thing, I mean, sorry, but sadly, right, the hardest thing for me probably was 9/11, because I was 2 blocks away from the towers when it happened. So that was certainly probably the the saddest day for me in the Bureau. But then again, one of the coolest days for me was probably towards the latter part of my career. I was also involved with the Benghazi investigation. I don't know how many kids in the classroom know, but our consulate in Benghazi was attacked. And when it was attacked, I was in charge of the investigation. Long story short, when I got to Libya, we were able to identify who was responsible for the attack on the consulate and the killing of our ambassador and the other Americans. But I was also able to identify one of the original perpetrators of the 1998 East Africa bombings. So fast forward, I'm flying to Spain, and I'm being put on the USS New York. The USS New York, if you don't know, is made up of the steel from the 9/11 buildings. So I'm on that ship, being flown out onto the ship, and a couple of days later, we're capturing the people not only responsible for the attack of the consulate, but also for those responsible for the 1998 East Africa bombings. So that to me was probably like the coolest thing ever, just because there was just, so many emotional things connected to those events. So probably my coolest day.
I think that's pretty dope.
So now, thank you for your service. We all found that very interesting. We'll go ahead and open it up to a more general question now, coming from Ms. Bittman's class. Seems like some of us have gone really different career routes. Is there ever a regret that you have? Oh, wait. Yeah. Is there a regret that you have that you didn't pursue a different career?
I have no regrets with what I chose. I love my job. It's satisfying to see patients heal and a smile on their face when they leave the hospital or the office.
I don't really have any regrets with where I studied, but I do have regrets of not going after certain tools sooner. So for example, utilizing certain social media platforms. I wish I just got on them sooner. I love TikTok. I do have a little bit of a following on there, but I wish I got on sooner and like really built that, because it helps business. So if you ever have a younger group of kids, people who are a generation below you, saying that they love this new app, just make a goddamn account and put yourself out there, because it really does help, you know, showcase you and your unique self to the world.
I got it.
No, hold on. What they would like your TikTok information. If you could please add that into the chat. Also, our next question is, we'll go with another general one. What are some soft skills that you think are really important for today's students? You know, a lot of you guys have changed careers and looked at different companies or different organizations that you've worked for. What are some soft skills that you can't necessarily learn in school that these guys should be focusing on?
I would say, especially if you're looking to change careers a lot, which I have a lot, using the ability to write an email to a stranger, like the ability to engage strangers well is important. So we talked about networking earlier. I have found that LinkedIn has been a super important tool for networking, right? And you don't need to know people on LinkedIn or have a connection to them to just message them on LinkedIn. If you just drafted like a message that's like seems polite, formal, like expresses an interest and makes really clear that you really want to talk to them and what you want to talk to them about, there are so many people who will just respond to that and say, yeah, sure, I have 15 minutes to like talk to somebody who's really interested in my career about how to get them where they want to go. So I would say that the ability to actually engage strangers and actually like write well generally is like a really important soft skill. And I know that that's something that you do learn in school, but I think in a professional setting, there are like probably some more specific like professional writing things that are helpful skills to have outside of just normal school writing.
Okay.
I guess
sorry.
jumping off what Maddie said, I think speaking and writing are incredibly valuable. I think to be able to write about what you'd like to do, it's just such a helpful skill. It's gotten me very far just by that skill alone. And then also being able to speak to people, like she said, engaging people. You know, you could go out to a lot of events and party. I know this sounds weird, but sometimes that helps as well. And just being put in the right room and meeting people, just being able to speak to them and tell your story is an important thing. And also being able to listen as well and collaborate with each other. I think that those are invaluable skills. And I have a bot actually that helps me write emails because I'm not amazing at them. It's called quillbot.com. So whenever I don't feel like I know what to say and I need it to sound a little smarter than I may feel, I use that.
I think just don't be
I have
afraid.
a couple questions here regarding loans and kind of financing. I know Dr. DeJesus mentioned that you took out student loans in order to go to school. And there were some questions about, you know, how do you make that decision about how much to take out and know that you're still going to be okay on the other side once you're done with school?
That's a tough question, you know, and at the age of 16, 17, 18, whatever age it may be, it's huge. I had to have a major discussion with my parents about student loans. I took out enough to just pay for my college. And then my parents would help me with food and just life things. As far as medical school, my mom actually sat me down and offered to pay for my medical school. And at that time, I don't know, I was in my young 20s, and I said, no, I will take out student loans and I will pay them off because you came and immigrated from the Philippines and you worked too hard to keep your money. And I'm here to work hard because you gave me a better life and I will pay for my own schooling. So that's what I did. And looking back now, maybe I should have let my mom pay for my medical school degree, but I'm glad I did it. And my mom is retired and my parents are having a great time and enjoying life as they should, since they worked so hard when they immigrated here.
I also
For
have
sharing
student
that.
loans as
We have a
well.
question from Miss Bittman's class on the chat. Did anyone ever study abroad? Would you recommend study abroad, and how can that play into either your college experience or your career?
So I studied abroad in India as an Asian and Middle Eastern Studies major, and it was really cool. I got to not only get to know other people from my school, because the study abroad program was through my school. You can also, if the school that you attend does not have formal study abroad programs, there are lots of third parties that you can go through. And those can be fun too. My program stayed with a bunch of other study abroad students from other schools. And so you get to meet people from all over, which was cool. I got to experience living in another country and have all sorts of crazy adventures. And so, yeah, I would highly recommend, if you're interested in study abroad, I would highly recommend it. I think that there are lots of both in-school and third-party programs out there that can be really interesting and just provide another way to experience a lot of what you're learning in the classroom.
Okay, our next question is another general question. So this is open for anyone. What's a challenge that you faced in your career, and how did you overcome it?
So I'll jump in. I guess, for me at the FBI, one of the hardest things was the fact that I was, a minority, in the Bureau. When I finally made it to the senior ranks, I was what they call senior executive service. I'll never forget sitting down. I was at FBI headquarters, and one of, the deputy directors noted to me that I was only one of 7 Hispanics in the SES ranks. So that was a little bit, eye-opening. And I think it was really at that point where I decided that, not only did I need to be successful in what I was trying to do in the FBI, but, that I had a responsibility to bring other minorities and those not represented in our group, so to speak, in the ranks of leadership to the Bureau. And I think hard work and certainly subject matter expertise was paramount in the success, or any success that I had as it related to that.
Sorry. Okay, I think our next question has to do with internships. A lot of kids are asking, how do you get internships? How do you find connections with different people and pursue that? There were specifically questions regarding internships for sports medicine and also on the creative side. We've got a lot of creative people in the room in my classroom who are interested in pursuing music and art. And there are questions about how to go about getting those type of internships.
So for sports medicine, I would Google search doctors who specialize in sports medicine in your area and reach out to them either on Instagram or social media, or even call the office to see if you can shadow them for a day. And if you like it, then maybe speak with that doctor about shadowing more often, maybe once a week, twice a week, whatever that may be, maybe even once a month. That's how to really do it. And sometimes that doctor have friends who also specialize in sports medicine, and you can actually bounce around from office to office.
So something I would recommend for the artistic field is to utilize social media and Google. So to look up people who inspire you and send cold emails or DM for work opportunities because, you know, just finding people who inspire you and being like, this is so cool. I want to be a part of this world. You know, a lot of people are looking for assistance more so than you would think. They need help creating what they create. And that'll just give you a you know, front row seat to seeing how everything operates and just so many invaluable lessons. But you have to knock on those doors. No one's going to come knocking on your door. If they do, it's pretty few and far between, or you get lucky from putting yourself out there. So you have to really tell people, hey, I'm here. What do you need? If you need anything. Some people won't respond, doesn't matter, keep doing it. And sure enough, at some point you will be able to connect with somebody who can give you a cool opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, did you ever find yourself like working for a company or a job that you really didn't want to be in, that you were not happy? And how did you kind of get yourself out of that situation? Did it have a negative impact on your career?
Yeah, I can talk about this one. So when I graduated from college, as I mentioned, really wanted to be a TV writer. And so I learned through all kinds of career panels from people who had done that before that the best way to do that is to start working in the mailroom and as an assistant. And I got promoted out of the mailroom. I ended up being an assistant to these two talent agents who would just scream obscenities at me all day. It was like a pretty abusive environment. And I was really miserable. And ended up deciding I had a choice, right? I could stick it out and say, hey, I'm going to endure this and just try to make it through and go and be a TV writer. Or I could take a break from it and take a step back and say, like, actually, this is something that I might not want to do. I ended up deciding, I told myself that I was going to take a temporary break from it and go work on a campaign in 2016. So I went to go work for a candidate in 2016 in that presidential election, and ended up not looking back. I really just enjoyed that experience so much that, it ended up not mattering. I ended up not wanting to go back to Hollywood. But I would say that in that moment, like deciding to quit was a really tough decision. I had all kinds of fears about, oh my gosh, am I ever going to be able to get a job again? I've now had this job for like 5 months and now I'm quitting. How is that going to look on a resume? And it ended up not mattering, right? I would say one thing is generally it's a best practice to have something else lined up before you quit. And so I tried to make that happen before I left. But if you're in a really abusive situation, you should also not have to wait. You should just leave. And I think that if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, I would say to you, it's going to be okay. You will find another job. People have come back from way worse than that. Don't be afraid to leave a situation that's bad. You can always pivot.
I've worked for many a job that I absolutely hated. One in particular was right before COVID started. And it was again, with the welding technical skill, I was doing antique restoration for a lighting company. So, bringing in these old antiques, fixing them up, but my boss and my coworkers were very miserable. I don't know if it was the job environment, but it was not a fun place to work. And I dreaded going there every single day. And it sucked the life out of me. And the time was so demanding that I would get out at 6 p.m. after working for, 12 hours. I'd get there so early and then spend the rest of my evening working on my own art. I never got time for it. I felt sick all the time from exhaustion. And then COVID happened and my department started losing money and they had to let me go. And that was pretty scary for me at first. I thought, what am I going to do from here? And it turned out that it allowed me to have so much more free time. I made it work. It was the hardest time for me, but at the same time, the best for kickstarting my own business and actually putting all of my focus into that and making money off of it and living off of art, which I'm not going to lie, I didn't really know if I'd be able to live off of art for a long time. And so being let go from that job, which I hated, so it was a blessing in disguise, it allowed me to focus on really what I really wanted to do and look inward and go that way.
Okay, my friends have now come through with more questions, so I've got more stuff for us here. One question from in the room is, how long did it take you to feel comfortable in your career and feel like you're actually doing a really good job?
I'll try that one. So, I mean, I think, for me, it was always in the beginning, I think there's always a little bit of uncomfort, like you don't think you're doing that well, or I always felt that way. And it was that process, that kind of insecurity of not feeling that I was doing well, that would drive me to do better. So I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I always feel like not having a full sense of control and striving to have that control and that knowledge has always been beneficial, because it always kind of balanced me to be able to work harder and learn more about whatever it is I was doing, whether it was, working investigatively on a case or managing a team of people. I felt that was always kind of a good thing, being on that edge.
Yeah, I would just add to that, like I've effectively started over many times. I've had a few different careers at this point. And so I'm now 29, right? And so throughout my 20s, I have always been in the process of starting a new career, needing to prove myself, needing to feeling that insecurity of, when am I going to feel like I'm good at this? When am I going to feel like I'm established? I would say I've been in my current role for a little over a year now, and I'm there and with where I'm at currently. But with each new career, it does take a sec. It does take a bit, and I think it's an evolving process, right? You're going to go through a lot of ups and downs with it.
Okay, we have a question in the chat from Ms. Bittman's class for Carlos. And the question was, have any of your FBI cases struck too close to home? And how did you wind up working your way through the FBI? Did you have any connections that helped you in that process?
So, too many connections at home. Well, there was a time I went through our database and realized that one of my family members had been arrested and failed to tell us that he had been arrested. That's probably as close of a connection to home. And connections at the FBI to a certain degree really don't work. Although it's always beneficial to know people, the way our promotional bureaucracy works is that you have to be able to write to all of your accomplishments and the things that you've done, and it goes to a board, and a board evaluates that, and it goes on to the next step. So for us, really, a lot of our success is driven in part by the cases that we've worked on, and the things that we've done that help us, succeed.
Okay, thank you so much. We got 10 minutes left in the blocks. We'll do a couple more questions, and then we'll start to wrap it up. Oh, I see Ms. Bittman has a question that they just added in. What do you guys hope to achieve in your career before you retire? So this one's kind of open to anyone.
So not only am I a doctor, but I was a professor at the Podiatric school in New York. So that was one goal that I wanted to achieve before I retired. So I did that for a year, and now I'm in Greenwich Hospital. And before I retire, I want to start a fellowship here with wound care and diabetic limb salvage. So that's something that is brewing, and maybe it might not happen next year, but within the next 10 years, I do want to start a fellowship, and that will be for 1 year. And that is after, if you are in the medical field and you decide to become a doctor, you have to do residency as well. So that's, focus into your specialty. You're already a doctor, but you're doctor training for your specialty. And a fellowship is what would occur after your residency if you wanted to do a fellowship.
Okay, another question we have is, how much of your success do you think is from college and school, and how much do you think has to do with your personal responsibility, personality, grit, those soft skills we talked about? What's that ratio?
So I'll say there's probably like a third component, right? Which is like the support that you've received from others, like, your family, your friends, your community, your high school, right? So I would attribute like probably like there's some amount of like, my family, like when I have been feeling low, they have always had my back and have always been there to like, give advice and make sure that they were there for me. So I would attribute definitely some of my success to that. I would say like between school and like just hard work outside of school, if I had to like break it down between those two things, I would say hard work outside of school has been way more important in my career than school. I think that a lot of jobs, like you do need to have like a college degree in order to be considered for a lot of jobs. However, in terms of actually succeeding in those jobs and doing a good job, at least the jobs that I have had personally, the things that I have learned outside of school have been far more valuable in terms of making me successful in my career. And I realize that that differs based on the person and the career that they decide to pursue, but that's been my personal experience.
I agree with Maddie. I don't, school is just the basics. It's really from experience that you get, the experience that you gain to be, great at your job. School is there, but college was all right, but medical school, that's the basics if you want to be a doctor, and then really the experience that you gain afterwards.
I would say for me, it's more half and half. My art school education allowed me to be pushed in specific directions that I think overall benefited me to kind of creating the specific niche that I have in the art world. And also in being in this art school, I formed relationships with my professors who were well into their careers and well connected. And then also with other fellow peers of mine, other students who then went on to hire me and I'll hire them. And it helped build like a really well-rounded portfolio for me. But at the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, it's a lot of putting in my own work and doing a lot of the thought process and project planning to create the art that I want to do, to set up the photo shoots, to go for the fashion field, to figure out how to showcase that to the world, putting myself on the internet to be discoverable in some regard. But also as an artist, you have to have a portfolio somewhere. So putting all of myself out there ever since I was in high school, I started on Tumblr and then moved on to other social media platforms. I think just trying to have a consistent portfolio where people could see me was one of the best ways that I was able to connect with others.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're down to our last couple of minutes. So what we'd love to do to wrap up is there any advice that you guys think you'd like to leave with our students today? Again, everyone on today's call is a junior at the end of their junior year, and we have in the other half of the call is seniors getting ready to wrap up their senior year, and they'll soon to be college freshmen. So any advice that you'd like to leave us with or parting words, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I would just say I'm ending out my 20s in a really great, like really happy with my job, my life, all of that. And there were many points throughout like college and post-college where I was convinced that I was never going to have a successful career, or that I had like made a major mistake that I would never come back from, or that I had just completely messed it up. And every single time I thought that, I was wrong. And the reason I was wrong was because like there is always another opportunity to succeed if you're willing to put yourself out there, pick yourself back up, and commit to doing something new. So I would just say, I know that there's a lot of nervousness around like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to pick the right school? Am I going to pick the right major? And like, if I don't pick the right thing or do the right thing, I'm going to like mess it up and then I'm off track. And then, oh no, there's no coming back from that. I would generally say that that's not like, you will always find a way back, is my general piece of advice.
I think everything happens for a reason. So if you may think, oh, I really want to major in this, and then things change through life and you major in something else, it's meant to be. So don't be scared. Everyone has their path in life. And at the end of the day, it might be years later, you shifted here, shifted there. At some point, you will be happy in your career. You just have to, it's life. You have to go through it with emotions.
And I would only say, just enjoy the moment. Sometimes you're looking too far down at the end state, not taking full advantage of the moment. And sometimes you just got to pause and say, you know what, this is pretty cool. This is pretty interesting. Let me enjoy it here for a minute before I start thinking about too much of the future. And I think that's really important, as as young as you are, with the complexities of everything that's going on, just don't lose sight that today is also important.
I think the two biggest takeaways or advice that I've been given is that connections will really help you get far in your career. I mean, being well connected, being able to be put in the right rooms or putting yourself in the right room, at least in the art world, is incredibly helpful. Someone can be a lot more talented than you, but if you know the right people, you can get farther ahead. I've found, and it builds your confidence as well to be surrounded by talented artists and other people who are like-minded. But then the other piece of advice that has really helped me is that, again, people often don't come knocking on your door. So you have to pursue things without feeling fully confident. I mean, being shy has prevented me from pursuing opportunities and talking to people, sending them a DM if I admired them. Feeling like I didn't have enough qualifications for a job to actually submit to it has probably prevented me from getting that job. And I think it's really important to just focus on putting yourself out there, whether you feel qualified or not, because oftentimes that's really the way that you get the experience and opportunities, as long as you just knock on people's doors.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
I just wanted to say it was a great panel.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to turn it over to Julie in case she wants to add anything as we're getting ready to close.
This was a great panel. I learned something new. I'm really benefiting because I'm watching all of these panels. So I'm learning something new from all of you and your pieces of advice. And Lily, where you said, make connections and things like that at the end, that's what we're doing with this. So students, if you have any questions for any of these panelists, send them a message. Take this opportunity because you have 4 people in front of you and 16 others on other panels that would be willing to take your questions and get to know you. So take advantage of that. And thank you everybody really so much for your time today.